Welcome back to the channel. You see the information on the screen, so you know what I'm about. So let's get into it. Last night we did a live. I'm shooting this right now on early Thursday morning, and I just had wanted to talk a little bit about some of the information that came out on the live last night. And one lady came in, and she, was really talking deeply about the fact that the church really doesn't do much with singles and really doesn't have an answer for, the whole concept of singleness out here among, people in the church. And I've talked about this off and on in a lot of different videos, but, she was just telling me that she had thanked me for the channel, and I thank her for watching, because, my hope and goal is for everyone to get married, right? And I think a lot of churches, they take for granted the fact that a lot of people know this or they're getting this. There is a misunderstanding about, okay, how relationships really work. And when we as people, as Christians especially, go out and the church doesn't teach us anything, and then we come out here on the internet, then we run into people that will teach us so much information, and we're trying to navigate what's good and bad in it, right? And that causes part of the problem. Like literally, there was a guy, that I ran into. I did a video with about him, and he literally was encouraging women to have sex, with men, in order so that you can understand more about them. And I actually thought that was the worst advice a quote unquote dating coach, could ever give, right? And so all these things are really going on. So how do we as Christians, deal with it? And the main thing that, I've learned is that people are still people. And we always have to start there. And Christians want to lean into the whole thing about equally yoked. And I 100% believe in the equally yoked message. But one of the things that I always want to encourage people to understand is that God is multidimensional. All right. And we need to understand that. And we are multidimensional beings. Okay, we are mind, some people say, soul and spirit and stuff like that. But, we are mind, body, and spirit. All right. So mind, like I said, some people will take it and go another way. But, I like mind because it's a little bit easier for us to wrap ourselves around that particular term. So we have all of these different levels, of us. And so when you're talking about being equally yoked, it can't just be at one level. It has to be at the multiple level. For instance, you might find someone who right now you believe, oh, this is a person that loves God like I love God. They hang around with God like I hang around with God, and their future plans with God is very close to my future plans with God. So that kind of covers the spiritual piece. You might find that person to be mentally what you're looking for. You guys have fun. You hang out, y'all have a lot in common. But then when it comes to the physical piece, y'all are off. And the problem here is not that, because I believe that everybody's attractive. I literally just did a video yesterday that talked about it and, talked about how everyone can lean into pretty privilege. But there's a difference between the person that might not necessarily be a pretty person now. They just might be average, but they're working towards pretty, versus a person that just says, I want to stay an average forever. And then they are married to someone who is quote unquote pretty, right? And the reason why it can hurt you in that physical place is for multitudes of reasons. Okay, first, resentment can show up on one side or the other. Insecurity can show up on one side or the other. And then the world that we live in, let's be real, can judge. I've talked to several people that, have gone through something similar. In fact, there was a guy that was on ER. He's a famous actor. I forget his name. If I find his information, I'll toss it up. But he was on ER, and he was married to a woman that a lot of people thought wasn't attractive enough to be with him, because a lot of people thought he was, very attractive. And what ended up happening was it became very difficult for his wife to really hang out with him because he loved her. He kept, constantly defending her. But I believe that the pressure almost became too much, and they ended up getting a divorce. And see, that's kind of what I'm talking about. I've even run into, like I say, I'm not against interracial marriages or anything like that. I have no problem with them. But I have run into people that have been in interracial relationships, and they have to find support groups with other people like them, because if they don't, what ends up happening is they can fall prey to one side basically saying that this shouldn't be a relationship. And through that relationship ends up falling apart, right? And so what we see, that even at that physical level, if you're not equally matched, to a certain point, it can actually put pressure on the marriage. And see, a lot of churches, I don't think they really want to go in deep when it comes to these things, because these are very sensitive things. And to be honest with you, I think a lot of the pastors, they really don't want to talk about that. But see, I believe that God, wants to talk about that. The core of everything God has built, when it comes to us as humans, not the world, but us as humans, it comes back to the family, right? And because of that, that's why you have to be equally yoked. But it's not really that difficult. Like somebody else last night in the comments, or the chat that was going on, they were saying, maybe people are making this a little bit too complicated. And I do think to a certain degree. See, one of the things I'm always encouraging people to do is you need to know yourself at least a little bit. And when I say a little bit here, I'm really talking about more like 80, 90%. Because if you don't know yourself, how can you say what is good for you? See, you don't necessarily need to marry a person that you want. You really need to marry a person that's good for you, right? And it's really important that you understand that, because if you don't, you're going to be out here chasing the wrong thing. You'll have crazy expectations and all this other kind of stuff. You need to look at yourself in the mirror, just like when I was talking about beauty. And you need to say, okay, I'm willing to put in the work for me to be a decently attractive person. And if that's true, then you need to find someone who is decently attractive versus someone who is an Instagram model. Okay, like if I was dating an Instagram model, then that means there's more work I got to do. Let's just be real. I mean, a woman could be 5'3", be on Instagram, constantly having flawless skin and all this other kind of stuff, and her outfits, and people are sending her clothes and stuff because they want her to, be out there and blah, blah, blah. And me and her might have everything the common, but, as a man, part of being attractive is having muscles. All right. And I don't mind going to the gym, and spending about 2.5 hours a week. But most of those muscle bound dudes that you see on TV, they're not doing 30 minutes a day. They're doing 1 hour and 30 minutes a day, if not more. And that's a lot more commitment. So if I want to hang out with that woman, I need to do that level of commitment. And I don't know if I want to do that level of commitment. You kind of understand where I'm going with this. And it's the same thing, mentally. See, people keep forgetting the fact that they can come together. I think we keep forgetting that we can come together. See, if you believe that the person that you are right now is 100% going to go into a relationship, you're fooling yourself. You'll be lucky, really, really lucky to get 80% of yourself into a relationship. The way I always say it is like this. If you see yourself as Coke, like in Atlanta, we Coca-Cola people. So see yourself as Coke. And many of you are familiar that they have something called vanilla Coke. And all that is vanilla syrup put inside Coke. And it tastes different. It does. It tastes different than Coke. In fact, if you put any syrup, where this, caramel or whatever, cherry, strawberry, blah, 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 into Coke or into another drink, it is going to change the way that drink tastes, And so from that perspective, Coca-Cola is different than vanilla Coke, which is different than cherry Coke. All those are totally different. But see, your core is still Coke. That's you. But remember, you're not going to go into the relationship as Coke. You're not going to marry as Coke. It's impossible. If you marry as Coke, then the other person is just, I don't even know who they are, because they have no influence on you. All right. And that's not a marriage you should be into, because that's going to fall apart. But but once you go into the marriage, you're leaving Coke behind, and you have to say, okay, I'm willing to be vanilla Coke, or I'm willing to be strawberry Coke, or I'm willing to be cherry Coke, or I'm willing to be orange Coke, or whatever it is. If you're not willing to make that transition, you can never get married. All right. And see, that's part of the problem. When you get married, like I've said before, I'm not 100% nerd. I'm not walking around like, oh my God, doing the Steve Urkel, did I do that? I'm not at that level. Evidently, I got a little bit of style to me. But here's the whole thing. A woman has to deal with a little bit of my nerdiness. She's going to have to deal with it. Because just like I'm talking to you, I talk like this all the time. So a woman that can't hang with this, it's not going to work. Now, I have to learn that if she doesn't talk like this, then I have to pull some of that back. Okay? And that's me. That's what I'm saying. I have to pull that back, because I can't bring my full self in. But if I'm like, yo, the new Marvel film is coming out, the new Captain America is coming out, and I want to see it, she can't be, oh my goodness, another Marvel film. When will they end? Shoot me now. She can't be that way. She has to understand that I'm excited about that. And even though it might not make her excited, she needs to love me enough to say, I'm willing to give this some effort. I am willing to try to dive into this world that this man lives in, because I love him. And not just doing it because 100% because she loves me, but also have genuine interest. Because what I've learned about people is that if you actually open yourself up, you could be interested in anything. Like, I've been surprised, like some of the conversations that I've had with different women, and they'll tell me about stuff, and I'll be like, that's kind of interesting. I've never heard of someone doing this particular thing or doing this thing over here. And I become kind of passionate about what they're passionate about. And see, that is an open heart. That is someone that is saying, hey, I'm ready for a relationship because I am willing to fill my heart with the things that your heart loves. And see, that is true support. When people are talking about a woman being supportive. Well, see, a man's supposed to be supportive too. That's just not in the top 3 things that women want. Okay, but a man is supposed to be supportive. But it's the same thing. A woman is supposed to be supportive. If a woman comes into my life and she's trying to change everything to the point where there's no more Jay left, she's not a good woman. She should come in with the caring, a caring scalpel, so to speak, and cutting out the bad things and really encouraging the good things so that those good things can grow, right? And then that way we come together. And then it's the same thing with me to her. I should be coming in saying, how can I bless her? How can I make her life better? What can I do for her? Right? So again, I just think that this is just one of those things. I could go on and on, but I want to keep this video relatively short and just kind of focus in on that today. Remember, I'm also moving into membership. I have that nice join button down there that you can go click. And, like I say, as we get further and further into this year, that is just going to unlock more perks for you. And then it's also a really great way for you to bless the channel, and just kind of help me, get some of the resources that I need so I can help you. All right. And so hopefully, like I say, that will work out, relatively soon. But I thank you. I ask that you would subscribe. I ask that you would hit that thumbs up, and I will see you all in the very next video.